Welcome to the intermediate level of this course, and I can guarantee you that once you are done with this intermediate level, you are going to upgrade your skills in Microsoft Excel. So in this model, we'll be looking at the model objectives. By the end of this model, you should be able to understand the different types of cell references. It's very, very important as an Excel learner. So you're going to learn about the different types of cell references, how to handle formula errors, and how to write nested formulas. And we are going to use real-life scenario data. So in this model, we'll learn about the cell references, how to handle formula errors, and how to write nested formulas. So stay tuned and watch this video. Now, there are three types of cell referencing. The first one that we have is the relative referencing, which most of us know. Then the second one is the absolute referencing. Then the third one is the mixed referencing. So in this intermediate level, I'll talk about the relative and the absolute. And in the advanced level, I'll talk about the mixed referencing. So this model is very, very important in the study of Excel. Now let's talk about relative referencing. Now, you know that when you copy a formula into other cells, the cell references change. What do I mean? Let's look at this practically. Now, I want to calculate the total for books. And we have the unit price for books is 10 cedis and the quantity is 10. So if I want to calculate the total price, it's just the price times the quantity. So it's either you can use this times, that's the asterisk 10, which will give you the what? The amount. Or there's also another way of multiplying by using the product function. So we search for equal to product. So product is also used for multiplying numbers. As you can see there, it multiplies all the numbers giving us arguments. So I can also use the product. And what's the number one? What's the first number? I want to multiply 10. If I want to go to the second number, I should press comma. You realize that the second number has been bolded. Then I'll press what? This 10 again. Then I'll close the parenthesis. If I want to multiply it by another number again, I'll just press comma, and so that the number will be bolded, and I'll select that cell. So if I want to multiply two numbers using the product function, it's just C7, D7. So you are trying to tell Excel to find the product of C7 and D7. And in maths, product means multiplication. Then press the enter and you are good to go. Now that I've done for this cell, if I want to do for the other cells, I can just copy the formulas and realize that they are good to go. Now, what is the relative referencing? Now look at this carefully. In order to get this total, I multiply B C7 times D7. You see, when I copy the formula there, you realize that it now changes to this C8 and D8. So you realize that both cells have changed. When I go to the next one, you realize that, look at the top here, C9 to D9. I look at the next one, C10 to D10. So you realize that all the cells have been changing when I copied what's the formula. That's what we mean by the relative referencing, which we all do. So look at this carefully again. We started from this one, C7 times D7. But when I copied the formula, the cell reference changed to C8 times D8. When I copy the formula here, you realize that it changes from C9 to D9. That's what we term as what relative referencing. Anytime you copy a formula, the cell references all changes. Now, what about the absolute referencing? Now, absolute referencing, this comes in when you want to lock a specific cell. What do I mean by lock a specific cell? Now, let's find the tax returns. Now, the tax returns, you can see my tax at the corner here, is 15%. So 15% of the total. So what do? I start with the equal to sign. So the total times asterisk, then what? This 15%. So that's how to find the tax returns. So it will be the total, which is E7 times J3, because J3, that's where the tax is in. Then press the enter and you are good to go. Now let me copy the formulas and see. You are still absolute referencing. Why is it giving me dash? because we are still using the relative referencing. When I click on this cell, you realize that it's rather giving me E8 times J4, not J3. When I go to this one, it is giving me E9 times J5. So you see that both cell references are changing. But I want all the total should be multiplied by the 15%. That's where the absolute referencing comes inside. So I have to lock this cell that has 15%. I have to lock it so that each number here will be multiplied by just 15%. And how do we lock a cell? So let's go back to the formula. Now the main cell I want to lock is J3. So what do? I press F4. Now anytime you lock a cell, you see that a dollar sign comes before the number, the row number, or the column letter. So you can see the dollar sign, and you can see the column G, and you can see the dollar sign and row 3. That's J3. So when you see both dollar signs, it means that that cell has been locked. Then you press the enter. Now let's copy the cells again, the formulas again. You realize that everything is now intact. Now let's go to the cell. You see that it's now E8 times J3. You see this time around it didn't move. When I move to the next one, it's now E9 times still J3. So it shows that I have locked the cell. That's what I mean by absolute referencing. But if it was relative referencing, you realize that all the cells will be changing. But because I want the total to be multiplied by only the tax number, I have to lock that cell by using the dollar sign. So you just click on that formula, or you can highlight it and press F4. Make sure you see the $2 sign. If you see $1 sign, that's what I mean by the mixed referencing. I don't want to talk about that now. So I'm just focusing on relative referencing and absolute referencing. So that's how to lock a cell. You also realize that it's still J3. But if I take off the dollar sign, it now comes to relative references. So all the cells will change. So when I change it down, you realize that this one will now be E8 times J4. You see, that's giving the next cell down. And this one that's giving the next cell, that's E8, because initially it was E7. So this one will give you E9 times J5. You get it? And this one will give you E10 times J6. Then E11 times J7, and so on and so forth. But if I want all the numbers to be multiplied by just a number in a specific cell, I have to lock that cell using the absolute referencing by pressing F4, and you are good to go. But I say make sure that the $2 signs are there. It means that that column and that row has been locked. So anytime you multiply a number, it's only this one that will change the E cell because I've not locked it. If I lock that one also and I drag the formulas, it won't change anything. Let me do that and show you. So let me press F4 for this one. So I have locked this cell, that is the 100, and I have locked the J3. So I press enter. When I highlight it down, you still get 15, 15, 15, 15, 15. You get it? Because when I click on it, you realize that I've locked the cell. So when I even drag the formula, it still doesn't move. I've locked the cell. But if I don't want to lock this cell, I can press F4 back so that there's no dollar sign. So this time around, it's only the E7 that will move. So the next one will be E8, the next one will be E9, the next one will be E10. But what I've locked is the J3. So that's what I mean by the absolute referencing. And I can just drag my formula and you are good to go. So this is the difference between relative referencing and absolute referencing. Let's move to the next topic in this model. Now, what we're talking about is understanding common errors in Excel. What are some common errors you can see in Microsoft Excel? We have the first one, that's the division error. So how do we go by the division error? So let's say, for instance, let's change this price to, let's say, total. And let's change this one to the unit price. Let me clear the formulas. Now, if this is the total price of the books and this is the quantity, and we want to know the unit price, what do? We are going to divide the total slash by the quantity. That's how to know the unit price. The total divided by the quantity. They will know the price for one book. So C7 divided by D7. Then you are good to go. That means each book is what? 1 cedi. I can send it down and I'll get the unit price of both. Now, what if one of the quantity was 0? Let me change that to 0. So you see, it goes in a division error. So anytime you're dividing a quantity by 0, it's always, how will I say it? It's wrong. Any number divided by 0 doesn't give an answer. So how do we handle such errors? Even though maybe the price is there, but you've not put in data for the quantity. How do you handle such errors? We don't want to see that division slash 0. Maybe we want to see an empty blank. Maybe this one was, I can change it to 0. Yeah, but still, these other ones, they are very important. Yeah, but I don't want to see this division slash 0. We want to see a blank cell, even though the formula or the data might be wrong, but I want to see a blank cell. How do we handle such errors or any error? That's why you use the function called if error. So how do we use the if error? So come here. We are going to use an error, a function called if error, to search for if error. So we can see if error. So the if error, the first thing I'm asking for is the value. Now the value is the formula that I've written, C7 divided by D7. It gives you a value, which is a number. You get it? So that's the value. But what if the value gives you an error? What do you want to see? Maybe you want to see nothing. If you want to see nothing, just type in 2 quotation marks. That's all. And you're good to go. So you are telling the Excel what it has to do, that if I input a value and I see error, I want to see blank spaces. That's the value if error. But if there's nothing like error, let the function continue to work. And I press enter. So you can copy for all. I just copy it down. Then you are good to go. So even if it's error, you see blank. What if you don't want to see blank, but maybe I want to see no data? So I just write no data. It should be in quotation marks. They are good to go. So that's how to handle any error types, by using the if error. Because you might not want to see this value thing also. I can also apply for this value. I can use the if error. If error. So if error, if you calculate it, what's the value? I want to see this value. But what if it gives me an error? That's the what if error. What do you want to see? I want to see blank. So blank is quotation marks into 2. That's all. You are good to go. So that's how to handle all error types. Anytime you are doing a calculation and you get an error, you can use the if error to calculate it. So you can see the if error. The value is the formula itself. So when you use the formula and the formula doesn't give you an error, then you want to see the number there. But if the formula gives you an error, what do you want to see? That's the value if error. No data. But if you want to see blank, it should just be the quotation marks and you are good to go. So that's how to handle any other error that you see. Now, another error that you can see is the value error. And what's the value error? The value error is when you're trying to multiply a text by a number. So let's say books times 50. I mean, it will give you a value. So let's say, for instance, I'm multiplying, let's say it's equal to books times a number. It will give you value error. You get it? So anytime you're multiplying a text by a number, and anytime you put, what's the name? Anytime you're multiplying a text by a number, you're going to get a value error. But if you see the division error, that means we're dividing it by 0 or by an empty cell. So I've told you how to handle errors. Anytime you see errors, I don't want to see this kind of error, you can use the if error function. That's where you search for if error. If error. So what do you want? This is the value. The value is the formula. And press comma, value if error. So what if you input the formula and get an error? What do you want to see? Maybe I want to see blank, just two quotation marks. Use the double quotation marks, don't use the single ones, just two quotation marks. But if you want to write something there, let's say invalid, make sure they're in quotation marks, then close. That's how to handle errors. If you are getting irritated by this value error and division error, this is how to handle the errors. If error, then you are good to go. So this is the end of model 1. Model 2, we'll be talking about nested ifs, how to use the if function, how to use the nested if. And once you master that model, I'm telling you, you'll be so powerful in analyzing data with the nested if. Stay tuned. Welcome to model 2 of the intermediate package. Now, in this model, we are going to talk about the logical functions. And what are the logical functions in Excel? You have the if, you have the and you have the or. So by the end of this model, we will be able to use the if function correctly. I'll also teach you how to use the nested if, whereby we are using a lot of if functions within themselves. Then we also learn how to apply conditions using the and or the or function. Then we also learn how to build decision-based formulas using this tool. So at the end of this model is very, very important for your study in Excel, whereby when you are done with this model, you'll be able to make or solve real-life problems like grading, salary, and bonuses, or making decision-based analysis. So stay tuned and let's learn more. Now let's look at the first topic of the day, the if function. I explained it in my beginner's model, but I'm going deep inside. So what does the if function do in Excel? The if function allows Excel to make a decision. So you want to make a decision using the if function. And there are only two criteria, whether it's true or it's false. So you are supposed to give a condition. If the condition is true, what do you want to see? If the condition is false, what do you want to see? That's what we do with the if. So if you have only two conditions, then use the if function. But if you have multiple conditions, that's why we use the nested if. So let's deal with only two conditions now. So what are the conditions? Let's look at the pass and fail column. Now what do I want? If the student gets, let's say, greater than 50, then the student has passed. But if it's not greater than 15, then the student has failed. So those are the two conditions, pass or fail. Those are the two conditions that I have. And if I have only two conditions, that's where the if function comes in. So let's deal with the if. So if, press the tab key, what's the logical test? Now the logical test is the criteria or the condition. What is the condition? The condition is that if the person gets more than 50, so I'll come to the mass column, maybe patience, mass 73. So if VIN5 is greater than 50, or in other words, if the person gets more than 50 in mass, so greater than 50, you look for the greater than sign, is 50. So this is my logical test. Now I press the comma and realize that they're asking for the value if true. If it's true, what do you want to see? Or what decision do you want? I want pass, so I put into quotation marks, pass. But what if the value is false? What if the person didn't get greater than 50? If the person didn't get greater than 50, obviously the person had less than 50. What do you want to see? I want to see fail. So those are the two conditions, or the two outcomes rather. Yeah. So if you have a condition whereby you need only two outcomes, then just use the if function. So what I'm trying to tell Excel to do is that if this column or this cell is greater than 50, if it's true, I want to see pass. But if it's not greater than 50, which obviously to be less than 50, I want to see fail. And I press what? The enter. Then I drag the formulas down. Then we are good to go. So you only use the if function when you have only two outcomes, whether pass or fail, or whatever outcomes that you have in your decision making. If it's only two, use the if function. Now, let's move to the nested ifs. What does the nested if mean? It means that what if this time around you have more than two outcomes? So for instance, you can see this data here. If the person gets 80 to 100, you want to see A. But what if the person gets 7 to 79, I want to see B? And what if the person gets 60 to 60, I want to see C? And what if the person gets 50 to 59, I want to see D? So you realize that in this situation, the outcomes are just more than two. Because we want to see A, B, C, D, E, F. Unlike previously, we just wanted fail and pass. So if you want to see more than two outcomes, that's why you have to use the nested if function. When you have more than two outcomes, take note of this. When you have more than two outcomes, you are supposed to use the nested if. What does the nested if means? You are using a lot of if in one if condition. So let's get straight to the point. Look at the grade formula. We have our criteria there that if the person gets 80 to 100, you want to see A. And what if the person gets 70 to 79, I want to see B. And what if the person gets 60 to 69, I want to see C. And what if the person gets 50 to 50, I want to see D. So you see, these are multiple conditions and outcomes. So anytime you have more than two outcomes, you need nested ifs. That means using a lot of ifs in one single cell. So let's move to the first one. So we just start with the if function. Now what's the logical test here? So I'm going to start with the first one. If this one, let's say mass, is greater than 80, obviously. So if it's greater than 80, that's the logical test. If the value is true, what do you want to see? I want to see A. So I put into quotation marks A. Now what if the value is false? So if the value is false, that's where the other if comes in. So that's what I mean by the nested if. So I'm going to use another if function. So the first if function, I said if the value is greater than 80, I want to see A. That's the value is true. But what if the value is false? If the value is false, then I have to use another if function. So I'll go with another if function again. Look for if, press the tab key. Then I come with my logical test, the second one. So if VIN5, the same cell, is greater than 70, what do I want to see? If the value is true, I want to see what B. It's put into quotation marks B. So what we have done so far is that, you see, you can see two if function there. The first one is trying to say that if the value is greater than 80, now if the person gets 80 and above, you want to see A. Now the second, it tests the first one. So if the first one is not true, it's going to test the second one. And the second one is saying that if it's greater than 70, that is from 70 to 79. Because initially, you said that if it's greater than 80. So when you say it's greater than 70, it's actually saying from 70 to what? 79, because there's another condition that is saying that if it's greater than what? 80. You get it? So if it's greater than 70, you want to see B. That's the value if true. Then the value if false. That's why you include another if condition, because your outcomes are not done yet. So another if. And what's the third logical test? If it's greater than 60. So if the same VIN5. So VIN5 is greater than 60. If it's greater than 60, what do you want to see? I want to see C. So into quotation marks C. So what are you trying to tell Excel? That I should check the first condition. If it's greater than 80, let's do it greater than or equal to 80. Otherwise, when you say greater than 80, that is 81 and above. So let's include equal to. So if it's greater than or equal to 80, you want to see A. But if it's not greater than or equal to 80 and is greater than or equal to 70, you want to see what? B. And what if it's not greater than or equal to 80 or greater than or equal to 70? What do you want to see? I want to see what? C. So see, these are multiple conditions. So the value if false, you need to test another condition. So another if. So if the same VIN5 is greater than or equal to 50, comma, if the value is true, what do I want to see? I want to see D. Quotation marks. then value if false with another if condition because I'm not done with my outcomes. So if is greater than vin5 is greater than or equal to 40. What do I want to see? I want to see if the value is true. What do I want to see? I want to see E. So E, quotation marks. Now I'm left with only one condition left or one outcome left. So since I'm left with one outcome, then there's no need for another if function. Do you get it? So if there's one outcome left, last outcome, that means if the person gets 30 and below, what do you want to see? I want to see F. So if the value is false, I just want to see, I'll put it to quotation marks, F. So what does this actually mean? So I can close the formula. So what does this actually mean? So I'm trying to tell Excel that if the value is greater than or equal to 80, that's 80 and above, you want to see A. But if it's greater than or equal to 70, that means from 70 to 79, because there's already a condition from 80 and above, you want to see B. If you want to see from 60 to 69, you want to see C. If you want to see from 50 to 59, you want to see D. If you want to see from 40 to 49, you want to see E. But what if the person doesn't get all the conditions that you've listed there? You want to see what? F. Press enter and you are good to go. So you can drag it down. The formula is down. Then you realize that everything is intact. So if it's 73, you see B. Okay, so let's do another nested if for remarks. So if the person gets A, you want to see excellent. If the person gets B, you want to see very good. If the person gets C, you want to see good. So let's do for the remarks column. Different outcomes. So we need nested ifs. So if function first. What's the logical test? If the grade, if this one is equal to A, if the value is true, what do you want to see? I want to see in quotation marks excellent. Then comma, they're asking for the value if false. That's why you put in another if. So if this W5 is equal to B, comma, what do I want to see? The value is true. What do I want to see? I want to see very good. So since there's another outcome I want, what if the value is false? So I'll use another if condition. What's the logical test? If that place is equal to C, if it's true, what do I want to see? I want to see good. So value if false, another if condition. What if that place again is equal to D? What do I want to see? I want to see pass, comma. Then the value if false. Then I left with two outcomes for E and F. So if the value is true, so what's the condition here? The logical test. If W5 is equal to E, what do you want to see? I want to see pass. Hey, sorry, the D is average. Then the E, remember that I can even edit at the formula bar. Take note of that. Because this one, the formula is very lengthy. So if it's equal to E, if the value is true, what do you want to see? I want to see pass in quotation marks, comma. Now value if false. Now the value if false is for the last, when I use nested if you are left with only one condition left or one outcome left, there's no need for another if. So Excel is going to test all these things. If the person gets A, you won't see excellent. If it's not A pass or it is B, you won't see very good. If it's not B and C, you won't see good. If it's not D, you won't see average. If it's not E, you want to see pass. But what if it's not all these things? That's where you use the last value is false. So there's no need for another if function because you are left with only one outcome left. So what if Excel tests all these conditions and they are not being met? What do you want to see? I want to see F. That's all. Just put into bracket F. Then you need like 4 parentheses. So you know that the first parenthesis is a black. So make sure you be closing it. This is a green. Close it again. Close it again till you get a black. So the black is the main one. If you don't even close it, Excel can automatically correct it for you. Then press enter. What's the issue here? So if let me see something. Okay, I think I get it now. It should be A. This letter should be in quotation marks. This letter should be in quotation marks. Okay, let's close the parenthesis. Press enter. Yes, and you're good to go. So take note of that. The letter should be in quotation marks. Otherwise, Excel will not recognize that text in the formula. Then you just drag it down. Then you are good to go. So that's how to use the nested if function. So a nested if is when you have a lot of outcomes. Like if you have only 2 outcomes, let's use the if. But if you have more than 2 outcomes, use the nested what? If. Now, the next logical function we'll be talking about is the AND function. After AND, then we'll move to the OR function. So what's the AND function? Now, the AND function checks if all the conditions are true. If all the conditions are true, it gives you true. If all the conditions are false, it gives you false, even if one condition is false. So let's imagine I give 3 conditions, and 2 conditions is true and 1 condition is false. It will return false. But it will only return true if all the conditions are true. So look at, for instance, I want to use an AND. What's the first logical test? It's just like the if. So I'm say if, let's say, C4, that means the person had, let's look at the core subject. Yes, the core subject. I want to see whether the person had more than 50 in all the core subjects. So the core subject is math, science, English, and social. So the first logical test is the math. So if the math is greater than 50, that's the first logical test. What's the second logical test? I have to test whether the science also, that's D4, is greater than 50. Comma, the third logical test, if English is greater than 50. And comma, what's the fourth logical test? If social studies is greater than 50. So it will check. This one if function, though, it's just checking your logical test. If it's true, it will return true. If it's false, it will return false. So I want to check whether the person had more than 50 in all the core subjects. You can see that the person didn't get 15, more than 15 in English. So when I press enter, it will give me false. Yeah. Why? Because one condition wasn't met. But if all conditions was met, it will give me true. So let me change this one to, let's say, 70. You realize that it gives me true because all the conditions have been met. That's the power of the AND function. So when it comes to the AND function, it tests all logical tests. If they are all true, it gives true. But even if they are all true except one, it will give you false. Okay, so let me send it back to 34. Yeah. So it gives me false. Why? Because it has to test whether all the conditions are true. Is C4 really greater than 50 Is D4 greater than 50? Is E4 greater than 50? Is F4 greater than 50? But when you look at the condition, you realize that E4, which is English, is not greater than 50. But the rest are greater than 50. But for the end function, it has to make sure that all the logical tests are correct before it will give you true. Even if one is wrong, it will give you what? False. So that's how to use the, what's the name? The end function. So if I want to check whether the students that, let's say, pass all their, or had more than 50 in the core subjects, because there's only 2 people, they had more than 50 in their core subjects. So that's how to use the end function. So how do we incorporate the end function in the if function? So look at this carefully. Now, what's the criteria I want? You know, in Ghana, when you fail in these 2 subjects, maths and English, you failed. You can do well in all the subjects, but once you don't do well in maths and English, no university will hardly take you. So what can the condition be? So I want to check students who pass, let's say the pass mark is 50. So I want to check a condition. Students who pass in maths and science, both maths and science. So I have to use the end. So if those 2 conditions are true, if it's true, what does it give me? Pass. If it's false, it gives me fail. So let's start with that formula. So the if function. What's the logical test? The logical test, I want to use, check if the person got more than 50 in maths or more than 50 in what? In English. So the logical test, I'm going to use another function, which is the what? The end function. So what's the logical test now? If the maths column is greater than 50, that's my logical one, comma. And what's the second logical test I want? English, which is this E, if it's also greater than 50. Sorry, 50, not 10. So that's my logical test. So I'm done. Then I'm good to go. So my logical test is that I'm combining 2 subjects. That if the person had greater than 50 in maths and the person had greater than 50 in English, this time is 2 what's the name? Logical test I want. That's why I'm using the end function. Then comma. If it's true, what do you want to see? I want to see pass. If it's false, what do you want to see? I want to see fail. You get it? So the logical test will be used, or the end function will be used at the logical test column. So if these 2 formulas are correct or they are true, it will give you pass. But even if one is wrong, it will give you fail. You press enter. Why is it fail? Because the person passed in maths, but didn't pass in what? In English. So the person fails. So I'll drag it down to know those who pass in only maths and English. So I add 4 passes. So you realize that these people passed in maths and in what? In English. And how did I use it? I used the end function. It will check whether the 2 conditions are what? Are correct. So that's what we have to do with the what? The end function. Now, let's move to the next logical operation. That's the OR function. So what does the OR function mean? It checks if any condition is true. So for the OR function, even if one is true, it will give you true. Unlike the end function that all of them has to be true. But for the OR function, even if one is true and the rest are false, it will still give you true. So let's say, for instance, I want to know people who pass in English or maths, not and maths. Or maths, at least one of them. So I'm going to use the OR. So OR function. The same logical test. So maths greater than 50. Second logical test, let's say English greater than 50. I think that's enough. So what does this one mean? If one is correct, it will give you true. So what I want is that I want to know students who passed English or maths. So even the students pass English and failed maths, the students has passed. If the students pass maths and failed English, at least one should be correct. Yeah. If one is correct and imagine I have like 10 conditions and I use the OR function. Even if the 9 is false and 1 is true, it will return true. So for the OR function, at least 1 should be correct. But for the AND function, all has to be correct to return true. But for the OR function, only 1 has to be correct. Then it returns what? True. And I press enter. Then I send it down. There. So those who had false means that they didn't pass in either maths or English. But those who had true, it's either they passed in maths and failed in English, or passed in English and failed in maths, or passed in both of them. That's what the all means. So the all has to do with anyone has to be true. But for the end, all has to be true. So how do we incorporate this one in the if function? The same thing, the logical test. So equal to, let's say if the logical test, I'll use all, press the tab key. If mass is greater than 50, that's the first logical, comma. And the second logical, mass, let's say English, is greater than 50. If it's true, what do I want to see? Pass. In quotation marks. If it's false, what do I want to see? Fail. In quotation marks. So what I'm trying to tell Excel to do, now I should check those who pass at least, whether the person passed in maths and failed in English, it doesn't matter. So far as the person passed in one subject, the person should get passed. Unless the person failed in both of them and press enter, then you are good to go. So for the OR function, at least one condition should be true. But for the AND function, all conditions has to be true. So that is the end of the OR what function. So this is the end of model 2 of the intermediate package, and I want you to really take your time and understand these logical operations because they are very, very important and can help you analyze a lot using the if, the AND, and the OR function and the nested ifs here. So in the advanced, I'm going to teach you how to use the AND and the OR at the same time in the advanced data package. But for now, try and get familiar with using the if and the nested ifs especially. Then the AND and the OR in your logical test. And you'll be so powerful. So stay tuned and watch the next video. That's model 3. Welcome to model 3 of this intermediate package. In this model, we'll be looking at the lookup functions. That is the VLOOKUP, the HLOOKUP, and the XLOOKUP. So at the end of this model, we will be able to understand lookup functions, how to use VLOOKUP, how to use HLOOKUP, how to use XLOOKUP, and how to even build real-life lookup system. So this is what you'll be expecting at the end of this model. And I can guarantee you that at the end of this model, your Excel skill will upgrade. So generally, let's talk about a lookup function. When you hear lookup function, what does it mean? So a lookup function helps you to search for a value and return related information automatically. So what do I mean? So you can have a lot of data, then you want to search for a value. How do we go by it? Look at this data I have, the HR analytics. You can see it's more than 1,000 records. So what if I'm searching for a particular person? Do I have to scroll down and scroll down and scroll down whilst I can easily search for that person? That's where the lookup function comes in. Then there are 3 types of lookup. We have the VLOOKUP, that means the vertical lookup. We have the HLOOKUP, that is the horizontal lookup. Then we have the XLOOKUP. So the XLOOKUP is the current lookup version in Microsoft Excel. So first, let's start with the VLOOKUP. Now, when you look at VLOOKUP, as the name means, vertical lookup. So it searches for information vertically. In other words, in columns. So if I want to search for information in columns, how do I go about it? So let's start. Now look at this carefully. This is my data. And let's build a short So I can write name, I can write age, and let's say department. Let me add salary. So you can even do this thing on top of your database. Yeah, on top of your database. Now, I want a situation whereby anytime I search for somebody's name, then automatically all the information comes. Anytime I search for somebody's name, automatically all the information comes. So let me write a name here. Let's say Chloe. So if I write Chloe and I'm done typing Chloe, I want to see the age, the department, and the salary automatically. I don't have to scroll down to search for Chloe. That's where the VLOOKUP comes in. So let's use a VLOOKUP function. So you search for the word VLOOKUP. Now the VLOOKUP, what are they asking for? The lookup value. What are we looking for? I'm looking for the name. So the lookup value will always be the name, because as soon as you search for the name, you want to see the results. So the lookup value will be the name that you're looking for. So the lookup value will be the name. So I'll just click on this cell because that's where the name is. Then I press comma. What are they asking for? The table array. Now take note of this thing. Common mistakes people make in VLOOKUP. When you are dealing with VLOOKUP and you get to the table array, make sure the lookup value is always the first column. Make sure the lookup value is always the first column. Our lookup value is the name. So when I'm selecting the table array, so table array is the table or your database. When you look at it carefully, realize that the first column is the name, the employee name. If the first column is not the lookup value, it will give you a wrong answer, which I will try it and so you see it for yourself. So always take note that the lookup value should be the first column in the table array. So they're asking for the table array. So this is the table. So the table array. Take note again, the lookup value should always be the first column in the table array. And my lookup value is the name, which is the first column in my table. Then let's see, what am I looking for? I'm looking for the age. Age is in what column? The second column. The employee is the first column. Age is the second column. So since it's the second column, I write 2. That's the column index number. So 2 means second column. Then I want an approximate match. Sorry, the exact match. Exact match. So if I want an exact match, I just press 0. That's all. Then you're good to go. So what you're trying to tell Excel Lookup to do is that you are telling Excel that as soon as you search for Chloe, you want to see the age. And the age is in what column? What? 2. And you want an exact match. So you press enter. So you realize that Chloe 25. If I change the name to Milka, you realize that the name automatically changes. If I change the name to Sarah, you realize that the name automatically changes. That's what it has to do with the VLOOKUP. So you can do for department. Let's do for department also. So it's equal to VLOOKUP. What's the lookup value? The name. So as soon as you search for the name, what do you want to see? That's the lookup value. So the lookup value will always be the name or the cell that contains the name. Then the table array. We select the table array. Take note, your lookup value should always be the first column in the table array, which in our situation it is, because the first column is the employee name. Then what is the column index number? Now we are looking for department. Department is in column 3. That's C. So column A is 1, column B is 2, column C is 3. So since we are looking for departments, the column index number which they are asking for will be 3. Then I want an exact match, so I write 0. And I press enter. So you see it's now sales. So if I search for Emmanuel, it gives me the details of Emmanuel. Then let's do it for the salary also. So it's equal to then lookup. Lookup array is the name also. So when you search for the name, what do you want to see? What's the table array? You can select the table as a database. And what's the column index number? Since you want salary is in column 4, that is D. So I write 4. I want an exact match, so I write 0. Press enter and we are good to go. So anytime I search for somebody's name, let's say William, realize that it gives me all his information. So if your database is very lengthy, there's no need for you to be scrolling down and looking for the person's name. No, you can use the VLOOKUP to easily search the results for you. So that's the essence of the VLOOKUP. Okay, so this time around, I want us to look at the common mistake or the mistake people do when they're using VLOOKUP. So let's say, for instance, this time around, I want our lookup value should be the salary. So let's swap it, salary, and let's do this one, employee. So this time around, I'll be searching using the salary, not the name. So the lookup value will be the salary. So let's say there's a salary of, let's say, 1,200. So if I search for 1,200, I want to know the name of the employee that is receiving 1,200, the department that is receiving 1,200, and the age. This time around, our lookup value, I'm not searching using the name, I'm searching using the salary. So let's look at the age now. VLOOKUP. What's the lookup value now? It's now the salary. So I'll just click that cell. And what's the table array? Now, if I select everything here as a table array, remember I told you that when it comes to the lookup value, it should always be the first column in the table array. Now I've selected all the table array. When you look at the table array, the first column is not salary. The first column is rather the employee name. So when I use this one, it won't work because always your salary should be, or the lookup value should be, the first column in the table array. So let's try this and see. What's the column index number? I'm looking for age. Age is column 2. And I want an exact match, so 0. Press enter. You see, you are getting not available. Why? Because your table array, the salary wasn't the first column. So what do we do now? So let's change it now. So I'm going to select the salary now. So this will be my table array. Now, so you see my table array, the salary is now the first column. Initially, I highlighted from A to H. Since I highlighted from A to H, the employer was the first column. So since I want the salary to be the first column, I have to highlight from the salary. So, but I know the funny thing is that if I'm looking for age, it won't come. Why? Because the age is not part of the what? Of the table array now, because the age is behind. So you see, the lookup value searches for informations at the right, not at the left. So you have to make sure that the lookup value is always in the first column of the table array. So when I look for the age is not going to come because the age is in column 2, and column 2 is not part of the table array. The table array starts from salary, job rating, and whatever it is. So it won't come. So if I want the department, I won't get it. So if I want the, let's say, gender, let's say F. So in the gender, when I look at the table array, gender will be column 3. So the salary will be column 1, job ratings will be column 2, and gender will be column what? 3. Then you press enter, you get it. So you get for the gender rather. So these are the common mistakes people do using the words, the VLOOKUP. So take note of it. Your lookup value should always be the first column in the table array. So anytime you are highlighting the table array, make sure that your lookup value is the first column. Otherwise, you're going to get not available or an error. So that is the end of VLOOKUP. Now, the second lookup value or lookup function we're looking at is the HLOOKUP. So anytime you get the word HLOOKUP, horizontal lookup. So you search the function searches the information horizontally. But for that one, your data shouldn't be arranged like this. And look at this data carefully. This is for VLOOKUP too. But look at this data carefully. You realize that the headings are in the columns. Yes. That's how we can use the VLOOKUP. But you can't use HLOOKUP for this kind of data. So for HLOOKUP, the headings rather will be in the rows. So let's look at the HLOOKUP data.
You see. So if your data is presented like this, whereby your headings are in these rows, then that's where the HLOOKUP comes in. But if the headings are in columns like this at the top of the first row, that one you use the VLOOKUP. But if your headings are like this in rows, then that's where you use the HLOOKUP, and it's still the same thing. So let's look for, let's search name, age, department. So since your data is presented like this, you have to use a HLOOKUP. So let's look for the name first. So HLOOKUP, that's horizontal lookup. The lookup value will be the name. So whatever I write in this cell should be a name. Then what's the table array? So this will be my table array. And what am I looking? The row index number. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the age. Now this time we are counting according to rows. So this is first row. This is second row. This is third row. This is fourth row. So you're not counting according to columns again. This time around, you're counting according to what? To rows. So the age is in row 2. So row 2. Then I want an exact match to 0. Press enter. So the main reason why it's not available because there's nothing here. So once I write a name here, let's say Chloe, realize that it gives me what? The age. So this is how the age lookup is used. So let's do for department also. So age lookup. What's the lookup value? The name. Then the table array. Take note of this one also. It's just the same as the VLOOKUP. Common mistakes people make. The lookup value should also be the first row. If it's not the first row, you still get a mistake. So take note of that. So this time around, our lookup value is the first row. That's the employees. So column index number. We are looking at department. Department to be in row 3. So this is row 1, row 2, row 3. So department is in row 3. Then I want an exact match. So I press 0. I press enter. So research and development. So whatever name I type here, Sarah gives me what? The information. So this is how to use the HLOOKUP value. But that one, your data should be presented like this, whereby your headings are in rows, not in columns. But if they are in columns, you use what? The VLOOKUP like this. So this time around, your headings were in columns. But if they are in rows, so if they are in columns, you use VLOOKUP. But if they are in rows like this, you use what? The HLOOKUP. And it's the same analogy. It just depends on how your data is being structured, whether the headings are vertically or the headings are horizontally. If it's vertically or if it's in columns, you use VLOOKUP. But if it's in rows, you use the HLOOKUP. The last lookup function I would like to talk about is the XLOOKUP. And you have to have the current version of Microsoft Excel to have the XLOOKUP. That's why I took my time to go through the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP. I won't be surprised most of you don't have the XLOOKUP because you're using the old version of Excel. So, but when you have the XLOOKUP, then there's no need using VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP because the XLOOKUP is an upgrade of the VL and HLOOKUP. So let's learn how to use the XLOOKUP in case you have it. So as usual, you are looking for the gender, look for XLOOKUP. Then the value. So the value, I'll be using the employee name. So I'll use this cell. So whatever I type in this cell should be the employee name. So the first thing they're asking for is the lookup value. And the second thing they're asking for is the lookup array. And the lookup array has to do with the column that contains the lookup value. In other words, if the lookup value, you're going to search using names, the lookup array will be the column that has names. If the lookup value you'll be searching using salary, Then the lookup array is the column that has salary. So since the lookup value, I want names, the lookup array will be the names column. So I'll select the names column. Then the return array, what do you want as a result? I want gender, so I'll go and highlight the gender. So one thing about XLOOKUP is that you can highlight 3, 2 or more. So what I'm doing is that I want gender, job role, and marital status in this order. Because when you look at my headings, you realize that I have gender, job role, and marital status. Then you are good to go. Press enter. Then now write the person's name here. Then you are good to go. So you realize that it's a little bit different from the other lookups, whereby I'm supposed to fill in each cell with the formula. But for this one, I just filled only one cell with the formula and then affected the other cells. That's the power of what? XLOOKUP. So this is how the XLOOKUP is used. If you have the XLOOKUP, then there's no need using the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP. XLOOKUP is perfect and an upgrade of the HLOOKUP and the VLOOKUP. So we've come to the end of module 3. And I hope you've learned a lot in this module. Tune into the module 4, we'll be learning about data validation, another very important feature in Microsoft Excel.
Welcome to module 4 of this intermediate package, where we'll be talking about data validation and data cleaning. So at the end of this module, you'll be able to control what users can enter in Excel. You'll be able to create drop-down lists, prevent wrong data entry, clean messy data, and use important text functions. Yeah, so that's the end. That will be the end of this module. So by the time you are done with this model, these are what you'll be able to do. So first, you ask yourself, what is data validation? Now, data validation allows you to control what users can type in a cell. So for instance, if given a form and you've rolled out the form to all your employees that they should fill in a form, as humans as we are, people can put in wrong information. So how do you limit such information if you want accurate data from people? There are some validation and criteria you're supposed to put in place so that they don't just be writing anything for you in the field or in the blank spaces. That's what data validation has to do with, validating the data so that whatever information you're expecting from people, it should be what's accurate. So first and foremost, let's talk about the drop-down list. Now, anytime you want to create a drop-down list, it's like a list whereby you select. So for instance, let's look at the gender. Gender is male or female. You don't always have to be typing male, then be typing female, and so on and so on. It becomes very tedious. So that's where the drop-down comes inside. So how do we create a drop-down list? So I can move to this particular cell, come to data, go to this side, data validation. Whatever version of Excel you're using, make sure you search for data validation, click on it. Now come to this any value, choose list, then come to the source. Now, what do you want to see? I want to see male and female. So I'll type male, comma, then female. So what I'm trying to tell Excel to do is that I want a list of male and female so that I can just select from it. Press OK. You realize that a drop down has come. So you click on it and you just select. So you can copy it down. Yeah. So you can just select. You can just select male. This is how to create a drop down list. There's no need for typing males and females and certain things, a whole lot of things. So that's what I mean by the drop down list. So let's create another drop down list for job role. So let's create another drop down list. So come here, go to list. So what are some job roles? Maybe driver, comma, accountant, comma, admin, comma, IT, comma, manager, guard, security guard, and so on and so forth. I'm just creating a list. I press OK. So anyone who has to fill the list, there's no need to type. So you realize that imagine these are the positions in your company. So the person needs to select. If the person writes anything outside this data, it will give the person an error. So for instance, let me write financier. You see, this value doesn't match the data validation restriction defined for the cell here. So whatever is not in the list, it doesn't come. So that's how you can also make sure to prevent errors from people. So you can just select and so on and so forth. You can drop it down. Yeah, so just select and move. Let's select. So there are some headings that we need data validation. If the marital status, we also need a list. So data validation, select a list. Then maybe I want either single, comma, married, comma, divorced, comma, widow. Press OK. Then drag it down to fill the other cells. So if they are supposed to fill the form, they don't need to be typing. They just select. All these things saves time. Because maybe somebody will not know how to spell married, someone will know how to spell divorce, so you have to create a list for them. Yeah, so this is what I mean by data drop-down list, whereby a list of information will be there for you to select. There's no need for manually typing what's the data. So that's how to do a drop-down list. So we are still on the data validation. Let's look at age. Maybe according to your company policy, your ages are, the lowest is 18 and the highest is 60, from 18 years to 60 years. But as humans as you are, somebody can just go and write 65. Maybe it can be an error. And it can affect your database. So you have to create a restriction. So you can also come to the same place, data validation, look for value. Now select whole number. Now the whole number, they're asking the minimum, 18, maximum, 60. So what you want, the data that you want in the cell is from 18 years to 60 years, or from 18 to 60, whatever data you want, dealing with whole numbers. And I press OK. Then I send it down. So you realize that if the person writes anything below 18, 16 like this, it won't accept it. You get it? If the person writes above 60, it won't accept it. But if it's in the range of 18 to accept, 28 to accept, because you set a validation that the data written should be between 18 and 60 to prevent errors, as humans as we are, to prevent any kind of error. Somebody can just write 67 instead of 57. So once he presses enter, he realizes that there's a notice there. So cancel or retry. You get it. So that's how to also create a data validation using numbers. So it can be age. So salary, you can use decimals. Yeah. You can use also decimals. So you look for decimal. Maybe your salary, the lowest employee is taking 400 cedis. And the highest employee is taking, let's see, 10,000. Okay, so you can drop it down, drag the formula down. So anything less than 400, it won't accept. No. So 450.5.8, it will accept. So salary can be in decimals, where the decimal means in Ghana, it will mean our pesos or our coins. You get it? So you can also do a data validation for salary also. Then also I think the department, you need a list. Yeah, so I've shown you how to do a list. Then the time of arrival. So data validation, you can use time. Maybe your company starts at 6 o'clock. or 8 o'clock rather, and ends at 4 o'clock, that's 16 o'clock. So you press OK. Make sure you copy it down to affect all the other cells. So if the person is supposed to write the time of arrival and the person writes below 8 o'clock, it won't come. If you write 7 o'clock, it won't come. Unless maybe 8 o'clock, or even let's say 10 o'clock. If you just write 10, it won't come. You get it? So these are ways and means that we can restrict people from entering just any kind of data in our Excel file. So that's what we mean by the data validation.
And there's also another data validation feature known as the text length. So the text length calculates the number of texts or letters or numbers you want to see in a particular cell. So let's take for instance phone numbers. So let me create a column for phone numbers. Now I know in Ghana, for instance, our phone numbers are 10 numbers. So I'll come to this cell, go to data validation, and look for text length. So what's I think I will not need between, because I only want 10 figures. So I'll just use is equal to. So I just need 10. That's all. So what I'm trying to tell Excel is that I don't need more than 10, what's the name? Digits or 10 words in my cell. So I just come OK. So if I type the number 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you see, because the numbers are not up to 10. The numbers are 9, so it won't come. So if I want 0, 5, 9, 8, 4, 4, 3, 7, 7, 9. These are 10 numbers, so when I type it, it will come. So you see, I've limited it. If you type less than 10 numbers or more than 10 numbers, it will give you an error. So all these things are done to prevent any wrong data entry. Yeah, any wrong data entry. That's what we have to do with the text length. Now, let's move to the other one. We are still on data validation. I just want to show you something here. So you've given a form to your employees to fill. Now the date, the age, you want to inform them that they should type age between, 18 to 60. How do you inform them? So you can create a notice. How do you do it? Click on that same cell. Come here, go to data validation. Come to input message, this side. And you can name the title of your message. Let's say, attention. And what information do you want to tell them? So let's say, kindly input ages from 8 to 60. So that's the input message. Press OK. So you see, they get a notice before they even start typing. The notice is already there. So they read the notice, kindly input ages from 18 to 16. So that's how to create notice for every column that you want to input data inside. You can also do something for the phone numbers just to inform them. So come here, input message, I can name it attention or caution. And what message do you want to tell them? Kindly, or please make sure the number of digits is 10 or R10. Okay, yeah. So before they type this cell, it gives them the information so they can type. So what if, despite this warning, and the person doesn't write the ages between 18 and 60, you want to give the person an error alert. So that same place, come here. So come to error alert. So you can say caution or attention, whatever it is. So you see, please type ages between 18 and 60. So you see, when you look at this one, it's an error alert. So if the person doesn't type between 18 and 60, you want the person to get an alert. So you press OK. So now imagine the person types 17. Enter. You see the question now comes. Please type ages between 80 and 60. So this is the difference between the input message and the error alert. You get it? So that's what I want to show you when it comes to data validation. So we are done with data validation. If you want correct data, you have to input certain measures or put certain measures in place. Otherwise, people will just give you wrong data. So that's the end of this data validation. The next one I'll be moving on to in this video is data cleaning. So the next one I'm going to talk about data cleaning, where I'm going to teach you text functions that you can use in cleaning your data. So for instance, the first text function we'll learn about is the upper. What does the upper do? The upper changes all letters to capital letters, like uppercase. So if I want the names in uppercase, I use upper. So upper. Then they're asking for the text as a name. I select, I press enter. So upper. So you realize that upper gives you all the data in uppercase. So if you want all your names or all your data to be in uppercase, you can use the function upper. Lower to all lowercase. So lower, select the data, just the text, press enter. You realize that it has given you all lowercase. Then proper will only make the first letter capital letter. So proper. First letter, capital letter. So you get it just like the data. Then the left. Now the left extracts text from the left. So what do I mean? Look at the Ghana card data. Let's say I want to extract only the GHE. That's the first three letters, because that's from the left. So if I want to extract only the GHE, how do I go by it? I'll use the left. So it's equal to left. So the text, what's the text? This is the text. And I asked for the number of characters. I want the first three characters, so I'll just write 3. So it extracts only the first 3 from the left. From the left. So from the right also, let's say I want 1, 2, 3, the last 5 numbers from the right. So let's say I want only the numbers. So I'll use from the right. I'll use right. Select the text. Now from the right, counting from the right, the numbers are 5, so I'll just write 5 characters. So to extract 5 characters starting from the right, then we are good to go. So we are left with the last one, the mid. So if I want to extract middle numbers or middle characters, How do I go about it? So for instance, the full numbers, I want to extract some middle numbers. So let's say it's equal to mid, search for mid. Select the text. Now starting from which number? So let's say you see this number 0553. So I want to start from the 3. So the 3 is the fourth number. So that will be the starting number, the fourth number. So from the fourth number, how many characters do I want from the fourth number? I want 5 numbers. So extract will extract starting from 3. That's the fourth number. 5, 9, 3, and 7. You press enter and you are good to go. So it has extracted the numbers. So that's how to go about the extraction. Mid, right, left, proper, lower, upper. Then we are good to go. So with this knowledge, you can trim your data, you can validate your data, anything that comes in mind. Once you have this knowledge, the ideas will come. So this is the end of module 4. We are almost done with the module. We are left with module 5. Then we are good to go. So stay tuned and tune into the next module.
Now, welcome to module 5 of the intermediate course. This is the last module for the intermediate course, where we'll be learning how to manage large data. So I'll be showing you a lot of things. When you have a large data set, what are some techniques that you can use to manage a large data set? So the first thing I would like to talk about is free space. Free space. What do I mean by free space? You could see my data sets here. I think this one, it ends up to let's say 200 here, 200 people. You realize that this is the heading that's highlighted in black. You realize that as I'm scrolling down, the heading is not there. So what if you want to scroll down, but you want to make the heading visible? That's where the free space comes inside. So first, you can highlight it or come to this side, free space. I'm going to show you. So you can freeze the top row. So you realize that the top row is row 1, what I've highlighted. So once you freeze the top row, it has been freeze. So when I keep scrolling down, you realize that the heading still remains there. That's how to freeze the top row. So let's unfreeze the top row. Let's unfreeze space. Now let's look at the second one. Freeze first column. So you know the column is the column A. So when I freeze the first column, you realize that if I'm scrolling to the right, it doesn't move. That column doesn't move. So we've learned how to freeze rows and freeze columns separately. So you come back. If you want to unfreeze it, unfreeze panes. So what if you want to unfreeze a row, the first row, and if you want to unfreeze the first row and the first column at the same time, what do you do? Now come and place your mouse or the cell, your mouse pointer here on this cell. Anytime you freeze panes, it freezes the cell at the top and at the left. That's why I've placed the mouse pointer here on this cell. So when I click on freeze panes, it's going to freeze the row at the top and column at the left. Always take note of that. Wherever I put the cell and you freeze the panes, it's going to freeze the row at the top if it's column at the left. So when I put it here and I come here, this time around I just choose freeze panes. There's nothing like freeze top row, freeze first column. I want to freeze the top row and the first column at the same time. So I press freeze panes and realize that they've all been freezed. So when I'm scrolling down, you realize that the row or the first row is not moving. When I decide to scroll on the right, you realize that the column is not also moving. So I have simultaneously freeze the rows and the column at the same time. So that's what we mean by what freeze panes. The second feature I would like to talk about is how to use the split window. And when does the split window comes in hand? And look at the data, we have almost 200 employees. Now, what if I want to know the first 10 employees and the last 10 employees at the same time? I want to see them at the same time, because you can see currently I can only see the first 10 employees. If I want to see the last 10 employees, I have to scroll down. And when I scroll down to see the last 10 employees, I won't be able to see the first 10 employees. So what if I want to see the first 10 employees and the last 10 employees at the same time? That's where the split window comes in. Now take note of this. Anytime you want to use split window, you have to unfreeze the panes. So I have to unfreeze the panes. So my first 10 employees will be from 2 to 11. So I'm going to highlight the cell. So anytime you highlight the cell and you split it, it affects the line at the top of the cell. So I want from 2 to 11 to be affected. So I'll highlight 12. So then you come to this side, split, come to the view tab, go to split. And I realize that it has been split into 2 windows. So this, you can see 2 scroll buttons here. You see for the first one, I can know from number 1 to 10. And I can go to the second one, the scroll button, and scroll to the last 10. So you realize that I can see number 2 to 11 and at the same time 191 to 200. So I can see the first 10 and the last 10 at the same time by just splitting the windows. So anytime you split the windows, you can see 2 data simultaneously. So that's what I mean by the split windows. Maybe if you want to, let me take the split window off. You can also split it vertically also. Maybe here, I can split it also here, so that I can look at different things. So you have 2 scroll buttons, one here and the other one also not here. You get it? So that's how. So if you want to view 2 windows at the same time, you can use the split button. If you don't want to, just take it off. Then you are good to go. So this is the second feature of managing large data, the split window.
Also, the other feature I would like to talk about in Microsoft Excel is using the zoom button. So if you want to zoom your data, if you want a wider view of it, how do you go by it? You can zoom it by using this side. So you can see this side. So you can increase it here. So the more once I'm pressing the plus is increasing, or the minus is decreasing, or you can drag the bar yourself to decrease or increase the data if you want to zoom in also. Also, you can also use this side also, this side. When you come to view, you see zoom there. You can choose whatever percentage that you want. Then you are good to go. So that's also still the zoom option in Microsoft Excel. If you want it in a larger view, you can also increase the view at this side or at the view tab. Then go to the zoom 100% or zoom. You can just increase the view. Also, if you don't want to see the formula bar, you can see the formula bar there. You can uncheck it. You realize that the formula bar is gone. You can check it back. Also, you can see in Excel there are lines inside. It's very faint though. It's called the grid lines. So if you don't want to see the grid lines, uncheck the grid lines. It will be like an empty sheet, as you can see it there. So if you don't want the grid lines in Excel, you can uncheck it at the view tab. If you want it again, you can just click it for the grid lines to come back. So that's also another feature in Microsoft Excel.
Now, the last thing I'd like to talk about in this model is how to deal with sheets, how to create sheets, how to rename sheets, how to color the sheet tabs, and so on and so forth. So you can see I have my sheets here, model 1, model 2, model 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So what if I want to add another sheet? I just press the plus sign. You can see new sheet. I press it. So if I want to rename the sheet, I double click and let me rename it Excel. So if I want to input a color on the sheet tab, I just right click. You can see tab color and you select the color that you want. Then you are good to go. So that's also how to add a sheet, how to change the sheet tab color. Then also, did you know that we can also copy, what's the name? Or make a duplicate of a sheet. So let's say, for instance, sheet 1 or this model 1. I want a duplicate of it, a copy of it. What do? I right click. You can see move or copy. So I want to copy model 1. Then I'll come to create a copy. Then I press OK. So you realize that another copy has been created. So you can see it's model 1, but this one you can see 2 in the bracket. So that's the duplicate of it too. So you can see the main one and the duplicates there. So what if you want to make a duplicate, but on a new worksheet, on a different worksheet, a new worksheet, how do we go by it? So you come to model 4, let's say model 4, for instance. I want to copy the sheet on a new worksheet. So I'll come to copy or move. Select model 4, come here. I'll go to new workbook. So as soon as you click on the new workbook, so let's create a copy first. Then come to new workbook. As soon as you click on the new workbook, a new Excel workbook will be created with this sheet inside. Then press OK. So you realize that a new workbook has been created. You can see the name book 1. That means the book hasn't been saved, but a new workbook has been created with only model 4 worksheets inside. So you see, you can even copy a worksheet on a new Excel workbook. So that is it for this model. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is how to protect a worksheet and protect a workbook. So in our beginners model, I talked about worksheet and workbook. So you can see I have 7 sheets, even 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there are many. So what if, let's say, model 2, I want to protect it. That means I don't want anyone to make changes to this sheet. I come to protect sheets. And I put a password on it. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. And I press OK. They'll ask me to retype the password 1, 2, 3, 4. And I press OK. So model 4 has been protected. So no one can edit the sheet. You see, if you are trying to edit the sheet, no one can make any changes to the sheet, which shows that the sheet has been protected. No one can make changes to the sheet, which shows that the sheet has been protected. So if you want to protect your sheet against what's the name? Errors from people meddling with your data, you can protect it to the password. So if you want to unprotect it, you come to the review, come to unprotect, and type the password you used. Then OK. Then now that you can make changes to your sheet. So that's how to protect a worksheet. If I want to protect the workbook, so there's a difference between protecting the worksheet and a workbook. So I'm just done talking about the worksheet. So what about the workbook? How do we protect the whole Excel file? So you can protect workbook here, or you can come to file, come to info. You can see protect workbook. And there are a lot of ways of protecting. So you can come encrypt with password. But first, let me save this data first. So let me save as on my desktop. And let me label it intermediate course. And I press save. Okay. So now let's protect the workbook now. Come to info. Come to protect workbook. Search for encrypted password. And let me input a password on it. Press OK. So you retype the password. Press OK. So this time around, the whole workbook has been detected. So let me close the workbook. Let me save. So you can see the course here. Let me open it now. So before I open the workbook, you can see they're asking me for the password. What you see there that's not the real workbook. We realize that it has only model 4. So I type the password. So nobody can open the workbook unless you realize that it's been opened. So that's how to protect a worksheet and a workbook. So we've come to the end of the intermediate course, and I admire your resilience to finish this course. It hasn't been easy though. But I've always said there's more to learn in Microsoft Excel. I thank you for purchasing from me, and I hope you've learned a lot from the intermediate course. The advanced is a work in progress. The advanced will be looking at pivot tables, we'll be looking at slices, we'll be looking at advanced functions and formulas, and a whole lot in the advanced data package. So you can go through this intermediate and the beginners and practice on it, and I can guarantee you that you'll be a hot cake at your workplace. Thank you very much. God richly bless you.